Do you know the difference between a high protein food and a protein dense food? Because the difference between these two could be the difference between crushing your fat loss results or staying stuck in a rut. The reality is this: not all proteins are created equally, which is why in today's video, I'll be covering the 5 worst high protein foods for weight loss. But before we do, it's important that you understand the difference between a high protein food and a protein dense food. And to help you understand the difference, let's dive into the first food on our list: peanut butter. Now, peanut butter often gets labeled as a high protein snack, and while it does contain about 7 grams of protein per 2 tablespoons, most of the calories in peanut butter actually come from fat. In fact, for every 4 grams of protein, there are about 8 grams of fat, which would actually make it more of a fat source than a protein source. Now, peanut butter can be part of a healthy diet, but when we're talking about protein sources for fat loss, it's not the most efficient choice because peanut butter isn't protein dense. You see, protein dense foods are high in protein but low in incidental macronutrients like carbs and fats, which makes them more efficient for weight loss. And it gets even sneakier because peanut butter is such a highly palatable food. So if you're like me, 1 spoonful becomes 2, then 3, and before you know it, you're halfway through the jar and you've consumed way more calories than intended. But peanut butter isn't the only food with hidden pitfalls. The second food on our list, beans, are another food that often gets praised for being high in protein. But like peanut butter, beans have their own challenges, like making me extremely flatulent. But beans do contain some protein for sure. For instance, black beans have about 7 grams of protein per serving, but they also come with over 20 grams of carbs. That's nearly a 3-to-1 ratio of carbs to protein, which should classify this high protein food as more of a carb source. And if you are heavily relying on beans as a source of protein, likelihood that you are going to overconsume carbs is extremely high compared to consuming something like chicken breast or a pork tenderloin, which are protein-dense options that don't have large quantities of incidental carbs along for the ride. Now, beans tend to be a food that are more used in meals, but what about high-protein foods sabotaging your fat loss goals that are more frequently used as snacks? Much like peanut butter, this next food on our list is often touted as a high-protein snack. And I'm referring to nuts like almonds, and while nuts do contain some protein, they too are primarily a fat source. For example, a handful of almonds gives you about 6 grams of protein, but it also comes with 15 grams of fat. And because fat is more calorie dense than protein or carbs at 9 calories per gram compared to 4 calories per gram of carbs or protein, the calories add up fast. And being in a caloric surplus is what causes weight gain in the first place. So even though you're eating nuts for their protein, you're consuming far more calories from fat than you might realize. After all, a serving is just 1 ounce and contains 160 calories. And let's be real, who the stops at 1 serving? And things get even more out of hand when you start combining nuts with this next food on our list, which are often seen together on charcuterie boards. The food I'm referring to? Cheese. Let's take cheddar cheese, for example. 1 slice has around 7 grams of protein, but also 9 grams of fat. Much like peanut butter and nuts, cheese is rich in fat and calories, and because it's so easy to add to meals and it pairs up so nicely with carbs like crackers or bread, this makes cheese another food to watch if you're aiming to stay in a calorie deficit for weight loss. Are you starting to see a theme here with the fat content of these food items? The reason I ask is the theme continues with the last food on our list as well, which is extremely popular in plant-based diets: tofu. Now, while tofu does provide protein, it's not as protein dense as some animal-based sources. A 100-gram serving of tofu does have around 8 grams of protein, but also comes with 5 grams of fat. With that said, if you are plant-based, tofu can still be a good option, but if you're looking to maximize protein intake without adding unnecessary calories, something like fat-free Greek yogurt, which provides nearly 20 grams of protein with almost no fat or carbs, might be a more efficient choice if you are vegetarian, for instance. With that said, high-protein foods like peanut butter, nuts, and beans give you some protein for sure, but they come with a lot of extra calories from fats or carbs. On the other hand, protein-dense foods like chicken breast, lean ground beef, pork tenderloin, top sirloin, and fat-free Greek yogurt offer more protein while being lower in incidental macronutrients like fat and carbs when it comes to their ratios, thus making it easier to stay in a calorie deficit, hit your daily protein goal, and lose fat. Remember, none of these foods is inherently bad. They just increase the likelihood of overconsumption of calories, which is the real culprit of unwanted weight gain in the first place. Now, with a better understanding of high-protein foods and protein-dense foods under your belt, unfortunately, we didn't have time to cover how to calculate your daily protein goal to maximize fat loss. So if you want to know how much protein you should be consuming per day in order to crush it on your fat loss journey, check out this video here, and I'll see you on the next one.